Fromage fry, it's Halloween, and in this video I'm going to share some true ghost stories. Okay guys, so it's Halloween. I've got me candles, so I better put them down. And in this video I am going to share some real life ghost stories that have happened throughout my life. I'm also going to share, I'm going to start off by sharing some of my friends and also friends of the channel who have shared a couple of ghost stories themselves, what have happened to them. So we'll kick off with them ones first, but before we do, I'll just touch on my experience with ghosts. So I basically grew up with a ghost in the house, and a lot of things happened, and it stayed with me until I was in my 30s. So yeah, I've got a lot of things written down I can sort of talk about. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of things I don't talk about. It's just way too many, and I've forgotten probably most of them. So yeah, so first off, I've got a nice glass of wine here, so let's have a sip of that. Oh, lovely. And I've got some Halloween munchies. So we've got some McVitie's what are these? Jaffa-ween cake bars. So it's just a gimmicked up Jaffa cake. And we've got some Mr. Kipling. Oh, the light's bad. I can't read. 6 chocolate orange slices. So we've got them. We might have a little go on them later. So I've got them here. Right, okay. So let's start. Let's make a start on this. So yeah, about a week ago, during a cheese board review, I revealed that I had got some experiences with ghosts, and I was going to do a Halloween special. What was that noise, Boo Boo? Boo Boo's over there. Was that you? Anyway, I was going to do a Halloween special, and I asked people to share their stories if they've got any, and I've had a few come in. And we'll start off with a friend of mine called Mark, and he's got this is a really good one. I'm going to start off with a real good one. So this was Mark when I think he was in his teens when this happened, sort of 13 or 14. And he had a friend whose parents had bought an old schoolhouse. Now, this old schoolhouse had, when it was a school, it had caught fire. It had been a real bad fire there, and some children had died in this fire. And then obviously years later the building was converted into a house, and Mark's friend's parents bought the house, and he went round there one night, probably after school or something. He went round there, and I think it was in the living room, and they were in the living room watching TV, him and his mate, and all of a sudden Mark could smell this real strong burning smell. And he's like, oh, can you smell that? The smoke, something's burning. And his mate just brushed him off. He said, oh, yeah, ignore that. He said, what do you mean ignore that? There's burning, something's on fire. He said, no, don't. He said, don't worry, it's the house is haunted or something. There's something really weird going on. He said, just ignore it, it will pass. And with that, Mark started to panic. So he got up, and he tried to open the door because the door to the room was closed, and he said the handle would go down, but the door was jammed. It would not budge, it wouldn't shake, it was jammed like it was glued shut. And his mate said, just calm down. He said, come and sit down, watch TV, it will pass in about 10 or 15 minutes. And Mark was absolutely convinced there was a fire somewhere in the house and he wanted to get out. But anyway, time went by. He said it could have been, he didn't know how long it was. It could have been about 10 or 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden the smell went, and his mate said, you can try the door now, because before we get to this bit, leading up to the door, what I'm about to tell you, his mate told him the story. He told him about there'd been a fire in the house, children had died, and he said the first time this happened to him, he freaked out as well. He said, but it happens all the time, and now it's just one of them things, and basically you get a real strong smell of smoke, the door jams, you can't get out, and he said, and then all of a sudden, when the smell of smoke goes, the door will open. And then once the smell of the smoke went, he said, there, and they go try the door, and he went and tried the door, and it opened. That is freaky. That's scary. I should say, my stories that are coming up, my ghost is mostly friendly. I grew up with a friendly ghost. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll move on to the next story, and this comes in from Veggie Matt, friend of the channel. Not necessarily so much as a ghost story, just a weird thing happened. And there could be a logical explanation, but Veggie Matt is convinced it was a cursed photo. And it was back when he was, again, about 13 or 14, I think he said 12 or 13. And it was at Christmas time, and his family were all together, and they had some family photos taken. And one of them, they managed to capture the whole family in this photo. Lovely photo. And then when they got the photos developed, back in the days when you had to develop film, send it off, when they came back, the one with them all in... Alright, boo-boo. What's that noise, boo-boo? Where's Bob? Anyway, let's carry on. So when... What is that, boo-boo? Oh, right, come on, let's get through this. So, yeah, when the photo came back, the family one with them all in, it had a skull, a human skull, floating, I think he said, just above their heads. And then years after this, death struck the family. Matt's mother was tragically died at a very young age of 42 years old. And then very quickly afterwards, his grandfather and his grandmother died as well. And Matt is convinced it's something to do with that photo. The photo was cursed. Who knows? It could have been a print of a previous film or something. I don't know. Matt did mention, people did say it could have been from a previous camera or something. Who knows? But Matt is convinced it was a cursed photo. Right, next story. Judith. Now this is my mate Judith. Now I call him Judith because he's had more holidays than Judith Chalmers. And Judith's story is called The Phantom Car. Now Judith's dad, now this is a third-hand story, this is coming from Judith's dad. And when Judith grew up, his dad told him this story many times, and Judith believes it happened in the 60s before he was born. And his dad was a truck driver. And one night he was going over a bridge, a fairly long bridge from what I can gather. It was a fairly long bridge but very narrow. Judith said at best you could only get two very small cars going across at the same time to pass one another. He said you get two regular cars, they wouldn't be able to pass. So it was basically the first one on the bridge gets right away, I think, and then the other side waits until that car's gone, and then they come onto the bridge, and it's sort of, so basically 2 cars can't pass each other on the bridge. Now Judith's dad was driving a lorry, a truck, so there's no way a car could get past him. So he's making his way across this bridge in his lorry, and about halfway across he sees some headlights coming towards him quite fast, and he's thinking, what the heck is this maniac doing? What is he doing? And he's coming towards him, and next thing it flashes past the side of him, and Judith's dad is absolutely convinced there's only one place that could have gone, that car, and that is over the side of the bridge and into the river. And so he stopped the truck, jumped out of his lorry, and had a look around. No sign of any car, no sign. I presume there would have been some sort of railings on the side of the bridge, no damage to them. Looked over into the water, no sign of any car at all. And then with that, he could see another car waiting to come on, another car waiting at the end of the bridge. He could see the headlights of the car. So he got back in his truck, drove to the end of the bridge and stopped and had a chat with the people waiting. And he said, did you see that car come past me on the bridge? And they said, no, we didn't. He said, yeah, he said, a car just come past me on the bridge. It must have gone over the side and landed and gone in the water, but can't see it. And he said, oh, that was probably the phantom car. He said, what do you mean the phantom car? They said, yeah, there's a phantom car that's seen on this bridge a lot. So whether that had happened years before, somebody had died in that car, who knows, but yep, the phantom car. Right, the next story comes in from another friend of the channel, Chocolate Bar Andy, which is the channel's chocolate bar expert. Now, he's got a story called The Old Man on a Bike. Now, he was walking home from school when he was about 14 or 15 with his mate, or his cousin actually. They were walking home from school, walking along the street. It was winter time, it was quite dark, it was getting dark. And they're walking along, and Andy sensed there was a bike coming up behind them. Now, I think he means that it was on the pavement, I think. So he sensed and heard a bike chain. He heard a bike chain squeaking, so he sort of turned and glanced over his shoulder, and he saw a man on a bike. And with that, he turned back and then stepped back and walked behind his cousin, so the bike had room to get past him. So after a few seconds, few strides, no sign of the bike. So he turned and looked again, and the bike and the man had completely disappeared into thin air. Legend has it that at the time, Chocolate Bar Andy was carrying a king-size Mars bar in one hand and a Kit Kat Junkie in the other. And with that, he turned to his cousin and said, "Did you see that guy on the bike?" He said, "No, I didn't see him, but I heard his chain going." Right, the next one. Now this is not necessarily a ghost story, more like a possible monster story. And this is back with Mark. Now Mark, again, he was a young lad, probably about 10, 11 years old, I believe. And he and a mate were messing around out in the countryside, and they came across a cave. Hang on, let's have a drink. They came across a cave, and they peered inside, took a few steps inside, pitch black. Mark said, right, let's get back to my gaff. We'll get my dad's torch. We'll come back and we'll have a look around in there. So they went and got the torch, went back. Oh, I should say before I carry on, guys, if I've not said any of these stories correctly, these are to the guys who I'm repeating their stories. If I've said anything incorrectly, please get in the comments and correct any mistakes I've made. So yeah, getting back to Mark's story. So he got the torch, him and his mate went back, they went in the cave. They walked into the cave, I'm not sure how far they went, but they were in there a fair way, and they came across a gap, which he described as a gap in the floor. And it was quite a big gap. He said you would have to take a big stride to get over from one side to the other. And they sort of went, whoa, hang on a minute here. Let's have a look at this before we try and go over this. So he got his torch and he shone it down this gap, and it just shone down into blackness. He couldn't see the bottom. It was just, the light just, as far as it could go, was black. So they got a rock and they dropped the rock in the gap. It never hit the bottom. They never heard it hit the bottom. So with that they thought, oof, I think we better turn around and get out of here. So they turned round, and as they turned and went back, all of a sudden Mark said this real heavy smell, which he described as maybe like a wet dog type smell, damp dog, all of a sudden sort of arrived. This smell sort of suddenly became intense, and then he felt something brush past him. It rushed past him. So what was that? Who knows? Could it have been like a Yeti type creature, Bigfoot, eh? Who knows? But there we go. That wraps up the ghost stories, monster stories, phantom cars of friends of the channel. So here we go. Let's get into my stories now. Before we do, we'll have a little go on these, because after all, this channel is predominantly a food related channel. So let's have a go on these first, and then we'll get stuck into my stories. So what we got here, we have got a Mr. Kipling, whatever I said it was. Chocolate orange slice, wasn't it? What was that, Boo Boo? Okay, let's have a go on these then. McVitie's. Yeah, now these are gimmicked up Jaffa cakes. Okay. Not bad. Okay, here we go. So like I say, I grew up with a ghost, and I never really realised until I was an adult. A lot of the things I'm about to tell you, I thought were normal. And even after speaking to these people about their ghost stories, it's all they got. And I really sort of believed up until now that I could stop anyone in the street and they would be able to tell me a long list of stories what I'm about to tell you. I really believed this as a child, and even as an adult, that a lot of this stuff, as a child I thought it was normal, but as an adult I know it's ghost activity, and I just thought it must happen to everyone. But I don't think it does. And again, anyone listening to this, if you've got some stories, ghost stories, please get in the comments and share them. Right, so I grew up with a ghost. We moved into a second house when I was 5 years old, and it was in this house, which I spent my whole childhood in, where all this activity used to take place. Now, the most frequent thing that used to happen almost all the time was we had a squeaking floorboard on the top of the landing. So as you stepped off the last step at the top of the stairs and planted your foot on the landing, there was a squeaking floorboard, and it squeaked Is that you, Bob? It squeaked every time you went up the stairs and stood there. Every time. And I can absolutely guarantee, because I never used to sleep very well as a child, whenever I woke up in the night, I would hear that bloomin' floorboard squeaking away. It would go when you stood on it, and then as you stood off it. And if I woke up in the middle of the night, dead of night, so it's very quiet, I'd hear that bloomin' floorboard squeaking. If I had £1 for every time I heard that squeaking in the dead of night, I'd be extremely rich. Right, the next thing I remember. Now these things are very, very clear in my mind, but I believe this sort of thing was happening all the time, and almost all of it was not registering in my mind because I just thought they were normal. It was just normal. So I never sort of collected it in the memory box, but for some reason the things I'm about to tell you just glued into my mind. And the next one is, can you remember, I think this was quite a popular, if you were around in the 70s and 80s, quite a popular ornament. I think a lot of people used to have these, and they were these glass fish. They were about that long, that wide, about that height, and they were a glass fish. And my mum, just like most households had back then, most people had a sideboard, an old wooden sideboard with a nice polished top, and you might have a few items on the top on display. And my mum had 2 of these fish, one on each end, and I'll always remember it was in our dining room, which was a lot of walk-through room from the hallway. We walked through that middle room, which we used as a dining room, and then into the kitchen. So this room was used a lot. And I can see it now. I can remember exactly where the sideboard was, and I was stood in front of it, and I watched this fish just go. It didn't just move like that. It went like that. It moved a good 2 feet. And I looked at it, and I don't think I even told my mother. I don't know. It's weird how the mind works when you're a kid. I just put it down to, that's life. That's just normal. And I never thought, although it stuck with me, as a kid I didn't think there was anything unusual about that. I can't explain it. And then the next thing I remember, a similar incident, and it was also on that sideboard. My mother used to have like a silver tray, like a fancy tray with all like fancy handles. It weren't silver, but it looked silver, and with all scrolling inside it, and it was all shaped very posh. But anyway, on this tray that was in the centre of the sideboard, she had a plant pot, like a plant about that big, weren't very big, but that big. It was sitting in like a dish of some description, and then the pot. And I was again just standing in the room, and then all of a sudden I looked across and this plant just threw itself over. It didn't come off the side of the sideboard, it just sort of went like that, and all the muck flew out. Well, not all of it, but a good quarter of what's in the pot flew out. Some went on the floor, some went over the sideboard. Now, I probably got the blame for that. I would have thought my mother told me off, maybe throwing a ball or something. I don't remember that, but I think she probably did think I done that, although she knew about the ghost, but we'll come to that. So that was another incident. And then another one which is very, very clear in my mind, I'll never ever forget this. In our living room, we used to have a wooden hearth, a fireplace. It was like one of these things you buy and then you stand it in place, and it was wood all around. It had a back to it, so if there was a hole behind there where the old real fireplace was, that's all covered up, so there's no drafts can come down. It was just all filled up solid. And then it had a wooden like hearth come out about whatever 18 inches, 2 foot, and on that hearth we had a I think it was cast iron electric fire, like a 2 or 3 bar electric fire. And I remember that old thing, it was really heavy. It weren't one of these cheap ones, it was a real big heavy job. And that was sat on that fireplace, and I'd never ever seen that thing anywhere else but on that fireplace. In the whole time I could remember living there, that's where it was. And I used to play football on a Sunday. I used to play in the Norwich League actually. I used to go all around the Norwich, playing all the Norwich teams. And then during the winter, I used to remember coming home and I used to be freezing, absolutely freezing. And I probably had a bath, and I come out of the bath, and I remember getting down in front of that fire on the Sunday afternoon. And I can still remember exactly how I was lying. I was probably lying about 2 feet away from it. I probably had 1 bar on, at least 1 bar on, definitely had a bar on, because I lay with me back to it like that, watching the telly. And then all of a sudden I heard a noise, like not that noise, no, I heard like a noise. And then I started to feel my back getting hot, and I looked round and the fire had got a lot closer to my back. And I sort of jumped up, and the fire had actually moved away from the back of the fireplace, and it hadn't just moved like half an inch, it had moved about 3 or 4 inches. And that, like I said, that thing was heavy. I mean, as a sort of kid of about 8 or 9, I probably could have moved it myself, but it would have took a bit of an effort to move it, because that thing was really heavy. And yet that moved a good 3 or 4 inches away from the back of the fire and just slid out onto the edge of the hearth. So that was another one. Now, in that house, I only ever saw the ghost once. I only saw it once, and at the time I didn't realise it was the ghost. I thought it was my sister. Bob, get on the back door there. You guard that. This again is so clear in my mind, I can remember it like it was yesterday. Now I probably would have been about 11 years old, something like that, 11 or 12, something like that. And I hated going to bed as a kid, like most kids, hated going to bed. And when I did go to bed, I used to lie awake for ages. And me and my sister would mess about, like talking to each other from her bedroom to mine, just shouting, well, not shouting, but just saying stupid stuff and that. So we always try to wind each other up, me and my sister. And we were in bed, and it must have been a winter time because it was dark. And we both used to sleep with the doors open. So my bed was like that, and the door was like that, but the door was open. So I'm facing the door. So the door would have been like that. So my head is looking this way, lying in my bed looking that way, but the door was open, right? So I'm lying there looking, and I kept seeing this head going like that. It was popping around the door like that. It kept going like this. And then that sort of coming across so I could sort of see half of it. And that was going like that. And I thought it was my sister, because it was all white. All I could see was like a white figure. I couldn't see a face or anything. I could just see a white figure, and I thought it was my sister, because my sister was blonde haired, and I just thought she had a white night dress on or whatever. And I didn't even cross my mind it was not her. And I just said, "Man, get back in bed or I'm gonna shout Mum." You know, try and get her in trouble sort of thing. And she kept doing it. And it was deathly silent. There was no noise. There was no giggling. There was no sound of her moving. It was just this. That's all I kept seeing, as his face kept peering around the door. So this went on for probably about 30 seconds or more. It couldn't have been long, because I was getting a bit cheesed off with her, because she weren't responding to anything I was saying. So in the end I shouted. I was shouting for my mum and dad, and my dad come up. And there is a part to this story I won't tell at the moment, will I? Yeah, I could tell it now. So my dad came upstairs, and he come in the room. He said, what were you moaning about? What's up? I said, "Tell her to keep coming in my room, will you?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "She keep coming in my room and sticking her head round the door. Tell her to stop doing it." He said, "All right." So anyway, he went into my sister's room, so he walked across the land and stuck his head in her room. And then he come back and he said, "Yeah, she wouldn't do it no more." Right, okay. And then that's it. I don't remember any more from that night, so she couldn't have done it again. But years later, we were working. I can remember where we were working. We were working in a private house, and we were with a carpenter. And for some reason, the carpenter and my father were talking about ghosts, I think. I can't remember exactly what they were talking about. And he brought up this incident. And he said, "Yeah, that time that ghost that messed you around, didn't it?" I said, "What? What are you on about?" He said, "That time you thought that was your sister." He said, "And that was a ghost." I said, "What are you on about?" "Oh," he said, "Yeah, you wouldn't know, would you? Because I wouldn't have told you at the time." He said, "Yeah, can you remember that when your sister, you called me up the stairs and he said, well, when I went into her room, she was sound asleep." He said, "I knew what it was. It was the ghost. So I just told the ghost to pee off." And yeah, and that did pee off. That never done it anymore that night. He said, "Well, you didn't tell me that." I said, "What else ain't you telling me then?" So are we at the point? Oh yeah, we are at that point. So the other thing was, well, he said, "Well, your mother saw it." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, your mother woke up one night. She felt someone sit on the end of the bed. She felt the bed go down. It woke her up. So she sort of woke up and sort of just lifted her head to look, and she said she could see a little old man sitting on the end of the bed. And that's all I know. I mean, my poor old mum's been gone 8 years now, so I can't ask her. But I'm sure I did ask her about that at one point, but I can't remember what she said. I don't think she expanded on it much, apart from she just saw a little old man sitting on the end of the bed. So my parents were well aware, stuff was going on in that house, but it was not talked about because we were kids growing up in there and they didn't want to frighten us. And I have now gonna run out of memory card, so I'm actually at a halfway point. So what I'll do is I'll take a little break now, sort this out, and then we'll be back for part 2. Back in a bit. Right, okay guys, back again. We got full battery and full memory card, so let's finish this up. So I left it at the point where I found out that my mother had seen the ghost sitting on the end of a bed. Now that basically wraps up the activity I can remember in that house, because I left home when I was 21 and I bought a house with my first wife and we lived there for 4 years before we split up. So we split up in 97 and nothing happened. I can't ever remember anything happening in that house when I was with my first wife. And then we split up in the May of 97 and we ended up both moving out of the house and it was empty for a while, and then I ended up moving back into it until it was sold in January 98. And then things started to happen when I was there on my own. Oh, that was horrendous. That was the worst time of my life, moving back in that house. It was awful moving back in there on my own after living there with my family, my wife and 2 kids. It was terrible, but yeah, so it weren't a very nice time for me. And then something really scared me one night, and I should say, I don't think, well, this could be similar ghost related, but this is nothing to do with the actual ghost, I don't believe. But I'll tell you what happened, what I thought at the time. But what I will say is I've only ever been really scared with this ghost once, and I'll reveal that is right at the end of these ghost stories. But this particular time, I remember I was lying in bed on my own. It was dark. It was probably winter time, and I remember waking up. And I was paralysed. I couldn't move. I could not even move my eyeballs. I couldn't open my eyes, nothing. I was fully awake, but I could not move a muscle. And next thing, I felt all this, like, all I can explain it was bubbles being pumped into my head. It absolutely terrified the life out of me. And at the time, I was really interested. I still am. I'm still interested in it. I have been since my teens, really. And I have seen a couple of UFOs as well. So I've always been interested in UFOs and aliens and stuff. And I was absolutely convinced I'd been abducted by aliens. I really did. I really believed it. I lay in there thinking I am being worked on by aliens here. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I laid there with the scene for ages, and I just felt this sensation of bubbles being pumped into my brain, basically. And this went on, and I was absolutely fighting it to just try and move. I can remember laying there trying to sit up, and I just could not move a muscle. And then all of a sudden it stopped, and I sat up, and I was giving it all that, looking around, and I was really scared. And I thought, what the heck was that? What on earth was that? That really frightened me, but I was absolutely convinced I had been abducted by aliens. Oh, Anyway, this happened again. This used to happen every sort of couple of months. Same thing. And then one day, it was when I bought my second house. So my wife and I, we split up, we divorced, we sold the house, and then I bought a second house. And at the time, I did have another girlfriend by then. I'd met somebody else, but I bought this house on my own. So there was no ties if the relationship went wrong. There was going to be no sort of baggage there to sort out. You know, that was my house. So I bought this house on my own. My girlfriend came and lived with me, but we split up after a year. And during that year, nothing happened in that house. Nothing. There was no activity at all. But as soon as she went, it all started again. It was worse than I'd seen as a child in the other house. It was crazy the amount of stuff that went on. But before I get to all the ghostly activity, my friendly ghost I used to call it, I'll just go back to this incident, this sleep paralysis, which is what I was thinking. It's either the initial thought of being abducted by ETs, I then thought that can't be that. Then I started, it's got to be some form of sleep paralysis. I can't say the word paralysis. So I'm sort of thinking that. And then one day I can remember I was in my kitchen. I had a TV in my kitchen back then in that house. And it was in the afternoon. It was one afternoon and I just had the telly. I weren't watching anything in particular. And Derek Akora came on, and he was on like this phone call type thing where people were phoning in and asking him questions. And when this caller rung in, she literally described what had happened to me, like laying in bed, paralysed and just getting all these sensations and stuff. And I'm thinking, that's me. That's what I experience. And he said, it's okay. He said, it's okay. He said, it's nothing to worry about. He said, don't be frightened. He said, it's your spirit guide. Huh? He said, it's your spirit guide. They're worried about you. I mean, he's obviously not talking to me, but I'm relating to this because this is all relatable to me. It always happens when I'm going through bad times in life. He said, your spirit guide's worried about you and they're trying to sort of comfort you by getting close to you, but their energies are too much. You can't handle it, and that's why you go into paralysis. And he said, but it's nothing to worry about. He said, next time it happens, just say in your mind, please stop, you are hurting me. And he said, it will stop. He said, it's all you got to do. Just think in your mind, please stop, you are hurting me. And sure enough, it was literally a couple of weeks after I saw that programme, it happened again. And I remember, because I'm fully awake, I remembered it. I remembered what he said, and I had laid there for a little while, going through it, and then I remembered it, and I thought, yeah, oh yes, I'm going to try it. So I laid there, and I said, please stop, you are hurting me. Bang. It stopped. And I thought, wow. And I sat up, and I'm like, wow, that's weird. That is really weird. And then it just come to me, I just remembered there was one time where I felt like I was being pulled off the bed. Oh, it was awful. And it weren't just like one pull, it's like I was being dragged along and the bed was never ending. It was horrendous. That's just come at me, that I've remembering that. But yeah, and then it happened a good few times after. This kept happening, and every time I just said, please stop, you're hurting me. And it stopped instantly every time. Now, this went on up until I met my second wife in 2004. So we're talking, I moved into this house 2000, girlfriend left 2001, so I'm on my own 2001 to 2002, and then my son came and lived with me, and then he was there from 2002 2004. So a lot of what I'm about to tell you happened in that year between 2001 and 2002. Things still did happen when my boy come and live with me, but not as much. So once my girlfriend had gone, things started happening. And what have I got written down first? Yeah, so the most common thing which happened so regular, I didn't even register it was going on, because it used to happen literally all the time, and that was someone walking around upstairs. Now I lived in a semi-detached house, and these were new houses, so this ghost, I don't believe, was attached to the house. I think it was attached to me, and I believe it may have been a granddad or a great granddad. But anyway, I won't go into that side of it. Anyway, so the house was built in 95, so it was only 5-6 years old, the house was. So it's not like it's an old haunted house, it's got creaking floorboards and all. It was a new house. So, like I said, one of the things what used to happen all the time was I'd hear somebody walking around upstairs, and it got to a point where I wouldn't hear it when it was happening, because it was literally all the time, and it was like living with someone else in the house, and I used to refer to it as my friendly ghost. Although I never used to talk about it much to people, because people think you're nuts. So I didn't really ever speak to anyone. No one ever really come round my house much. So, but when that did come up, I used to refer to it as my friendly ghost. And also in that house, it was a little 3-bed semi. So you'd walk in the front door, stairs are in front of you. There's just a little square sort of bit at the bottom of the stairs where the front door is, and then you just walk in, turn left into your lounge, and then the kitchen's at the back of the house. Walk through the lounge, kitchen, dining area at the back. Now, like I said, this is a modern house, all central heating, gas central heating, and radiator at the bottom of the stairs. Yeah, that hallway was always freezing cold, even in summer. Winter time I'd have that radiator full blast, and even with the lounge door wide open, you can walk from the lounge, and as soon as you cross the door threshold or the door lining, it's like an instant temperature change. It's like walking from inside your house to outside in winter. It was freaky how much the temperature change was, and it was always like it. And I could never really get my head around other than it was something to do with the paranormal doing it. Now that will sort of link to the last part of this sort of series of events, that hallway. What else have we got here? Oh yeah, that was the other thing I used to do, again, which is why I would call it the friendly ghost. It used to mess me around. It used to move things around in my house. So I'd go to work, and I'd come back, and I'd go in my kitchen, and you know it's like you always have your kitchen cupboard, certain things go there. Always, that lives in that cupboard, that lives in that cupboard. I'd come back home, and I'd go to get something, and that wouldn't be in there, and I'd be, where's that gone? I'm sure I ain't run out of that. And I'd open another drawer, and it would literally be put in a cupboard the other side of the kitchen. There's no way I would have put that in that cupboard. No way. And this used to happen all the time. Another time I came home, and all the stuff in the bathroom had moved. Like his shower gels used to be on like the end where the shower head was. I don't know what I used to have back then, but I probably had 4 or 5 different items on that end of the bath. Come on one night, straight in the shower, get them from work, and that's all up the other end of the bath. And I'm thinking, God, this is messing me about here. I used to laugh at it. I used to say, yeah, nice one. And then another classic one, which didn't happen that many times, it happened a few times, was I'd come home from work and the TV would be on. That happened, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And actually a mate of mine witnessed it as well, because no, he didn't. Yeah, I think we'd been out clubbing the night before, and he'd stayed over mine. And then when I left for work, he left at the same time. And then that day, when I came home, my TV was on, and I asked him, I said, did we put that TV on in the morning? I said, I can't remember us having the TV on in the morning. Was that on? He said, definitely not. When we left there, that TV was not on. So, but when I got home that day, the TV was on, and that did happen a few times. Now another time was, I was working on a building site locally within about half a mile where I lived, and one day I think we must have ran out of tea bags or coffee or something, and the painter, he I can't remember, it turned out, I said, well, why don't we go back to my gaff and we'll have a cup of drink at mine, we'll have a lunch at mine. Yeah, alright then. So we go back to mine, we're sitting in my living room, got a cup of coffee, whatever, we're having a chat, and then next thing Mo said, who's that upstairs? Whoa. He said, who's that upstairs? We said, what do you mean? He said, there's someone upstairs. We said, no, there ain't. He said, I live here on my own. You know I do. He said, there's someone upstairs. We said, that isn't this the friendly ghost? And he went, don't be daft. He said, come on, who is that? Who you got up there? I said, I ain't got anyone up there. We said, it's the friendly ghost. No, he weren't having it. He said, because I lived in a semi-detached, he said, that must be your next door neighbour. I said, that don't sound like that's coming from next door. He said, you wouldn't hear that as clear as that from next door. I mean, it was a modern building. They got all double skinned walls with cavities and insulation. I said, the sound wouldn't travel through them walls like that, just someone walking around. I said, and anyway, he worked on the rigs. Again, that was a single guy lived next door. He worked on the rigs and he used to be always at work. He used to literally be gone for a month, come home for a week and then be gone again. And he had gone about a week before, and when we came home that day, his car weren't on the drive. I said, go look, his car's not on the drive. He said, he's not there. I said, no one's next door. And poor old Mo, he didn't know what to think. He really didn't. Because he could hear it with his own ear. Here's someone up there. And I said to him, go have a look. If you think someone's up there, go and have a look. I said, there ain't no one up there. And he daren't go and have a look. So that was that one. And that, yeah, we're now getting towards the end now. So then, and then we'll fast forward to 2004 when I got with me second wife. And in the early days of us being together, she offered to go round my house and do a bit of cleaning while I was at work. I said, yeah, that's kind of you, ought to do that. Yeah, alright. So she had a key to the house, and she told me she was going to go there on this particular day to go do some cleaning. So anyway, I never heard from her. She never messaged to tell me what had happened, but when I got home that night, first thing I used to do, get in the shower. I went in the bathroom and there was just stuff laid about. And it was like she was cleaning and then she got a phone call, emergency, gotta go. But what was weird was there was a smashed tile in the sink, in the bathroom sink. one of the tiles, which was on the wall, like the splashback, it was off the wall and in the sink smashed. And leading up to this, I'd told her that I'd got a friendly ghost and she didn't believe me. She was like, yeah, of course you have. I said, I have. I've got a friend. There's a friendly ghost in this house. And she was like, yeah, don't believe you. I don't believe in ghosts. I said, all right then. Anyway, like I said, went home, went in the bathroom. The tile was smashed. There was like cleaning stuff laid about. Well, it looked like she just dropped it and gone. So I then called her up. I said, I just got home and there's a... Why ain't you finished cleaning? And why have I got a smashed tile in me sink? She said, don't you talk to me about that. She said, I'm not going round there again. I'm not coming round your house again. I said, why? She said, that bloomin' ghost. You have got a ghost, didn't you? I said, why? What happened? She said, well, I was working away in the bathroom. All of a sudden I heard a smash, turned round and the tile had come off the wall and smashed. She weren't working on the sink, she was on the bath. She said, I heard a smash behind me, turned round and it had all smashed. She said, I weren't hanging around. I just dropped everything and got out of there and I ain't coming back. And she never did. She never went back in that house. So that was that one. Now here we go, we're wrapping up my sort of ghost stories now. This is sort of the last bit. And this is the only time, apart from the spirit guide thing, because I sort of separate that, because that was nothing to do with a friendly ghost, I don't believe. So, but this is the only time my friendly ghost frightened me, and I really was frightened. And it would have been around about 2001, because I was in the house on my own. It was night time, it was dark, so it's probably winter time. And I'd fell asleep on the sofa. And my sofa was like that, and the hallway door was directly in front of me. So the little hallway's there, front door there, stairs going up like that. So you come down the stairs, turn and walk into the door and facing the sofa. So I'm laid on the sofa and my face is looking at the doorway. So this is the door where you walk through and then you get your temperature change, right? So I'm laid there, I fell asleep, I've woken up and I've been awake a few minutes and I'm sort of trying to pluck the energy up to get myself up and get myself to bed. And then all of a sudden I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It sounded exactly like someone was walking down my stairs. And it went doo, doo, doo. And it was long enough to me to sit there and give the old big old gulp, just waiting to see what appeared. Because when it take a step off the bottom step, it's in the doorway. It's literally going to be standing in the doorway. And as it was coming down, my heart was getting faster and faster, and I was really scared. I was. That's the only time I was scared by that ghost. And it took the last step. Nothing. Nothing there. And I didn't know what to think. I mean, it sounded exactly like someone walking down the stairs, so I really was expecting to finally see it. But there was nothing there. And then, because I had the dilemma, I've got to go through the door and up them stairs to bed. And to be honest, I can't remember what I did after that, but I did go to bed. but I was frightened. I would have sort of gingerly stuck my head round the wall of the stairs and gone up and had a look. But that was the only time that really frightened me, that ghost. So the tile smashing, that would have happened before that. After that. That footsteps come down the stairs would have been before my wife, or my future wife, experiencing the tile smashing. So yeah, that basically was what went on in that house. There was other stuff went on, but the memories of them are not very clear. And there was an instant when my boy saw it one night, I think, but I can't really remember what happened about it. But yeah, there we are. But I've always felt like I've always had deja vu. Stuff happen to me. It happens all the time. It's normally like I'll hear things like conversation. I'll have conversations with people and I think I've been here before. I know what he's gonna. I'm thinking this in my mind as we're saying it, as we're having a conversation, and my sort of self is talking to myself saying, "You've been here before. You know he's gonna say this next," and then out he says it. And that sort of thing happens to me all the time. Like telepathy. This is what I want to know, guys. Is this normal? I'm convinced this is normal. I think it happens to people, and A, they don't talk about it because they don't want to be sort of labelled as crazy, or B, they don't really realise it's happening, but it is happening. So I think these deja vu moments happen to everyone, and the telepathy type thing happens to me a lot as well, and I'm sure it must happen to everyone. And that is, and without a doubt, some of it will be coincidence. But I mean, it only happened to me the other day where I sent a WhatsApp message to a guy at work about something, and I was expecting a reply back straight away, right? And I sent the message about, I think it was about 7:30 in the morning, and then it was in the afternoon, I think. He hadn't replied, and I'd completely forgot about him replying. It completely gone out of my mind. And then all of a sudden that popped in my mind. Nigel hadn't replied back, and then 5 seconds later, in come his reply. And this is about 6-7 hours after I sent it. I mean, yes, that can be coincidence, but the timing, I literally tuned into it when he was pressing the send button. So I just don't think it is all coincidence, because it happens too regular. Like all of a sudden someone's will come popping into my mind. I'll think of a friend, and then next thing the phone's ringing, and that's my friend ringing me, or they're sending me a message. And this stuff happens too regular for it to be coincidence. So please, if you've got any ghost stories yourselves, I want to hear them. And also these deja vu telepathy type moments, I want to hear them as well. Because don't put it off as coincidence. Yes, some of them will be, but some of them definitely are not. And the more you sort of open your mind to it being possible, the more you will notice it happening. You will think, God, that only happened last week, and now it's happened again. And then you'll notice it'll happen again and again, and then you start thinking that is not coincidence all the time. So I'd love to hear all that sort of stuff. I'm really interested in all this. So we'll leave it there, guys. Yeah, we better leave it there, I think. Right, okay, guys. So I think it's time to get Boo Boo. I mean, he's been very quiet. He's over there. Right there, Boo Boo? I don't know if he's a bit scared of these candles, because when I first lit him, he did have a bit of a... You know what he's like. He had to check him out, did he? So he sort of got fairly close to him. So I don't know, I bet he'll turn up when the Dreamies come out, because we have got a question, and it is like a Halloweeny type. Yeah, it is a Halloween question. Right, okay guys. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me and old Boo Boo again soon on another video. Take care guys. Right, okay then, who wants a Dreamies and who wants a Scooby Snacks? Here he come. Come on then. Right now then, Bob. I don't want you doing your devil dog impression. Alright, Boo Boo. There we are, Bob. Aye. All the days. Oh yeah, we've got some candles behind there, so you're gonna have to be careful, Boo Boo. Alright? Be careful, my man, because that thing will fly off in a minute. Alright, good lad, you stay there. Just stay still, let that thing fly off. God, there it go. Right, you stay there, Boo Boo. Stay there, my man, good lad. Right, here's the question. Now, according to tradition, if a person wears his or her clothes inside out and then walks backwards on Halloween, he or she will see what at midnight? Is it A, a witch, B, a ghost, or C, a black cat? If you knew the answer to that, well done. Get in the comments and let me know. And I'll catch you on another video. Hope you enjoy your Halloween. Cheers, guys.